It's August the 2nd, 2024, and it's official. The former Pac-12 schools, the four corner schools from the Pac-12, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, are now official members of the Big 12 Conference. Who'd have thought this would ever happen? You have Arizona State, Colorado, Utah in the same conference with the West Virginia Mountaineers, the UCF Knights, and the Cincinnati Bearcats. What a time to be alive. It's also the day that Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA become members of the Big Ten, and the day that Stanford and California become official members of the ACC. So, it's a big day, historic day in college football, college sports overall. Obviously, I'm a Big 12 guy, so I'm going to focus on the Big 12 part of that today with the official edition of the Four Corner Schools. Welcome to the League Four Corner Schools. We all knew this day was coming. I'd say the biggest day was when it was first announced, honestly, but it does become official today. All four schools put out tweets. The Big 12 put out a tweet announcing it, so everybody's kind of celebrating today. And in honor of this and to celebrate, I decided, you know what, I've been wanting to do some preview videos for all the Big 12 teams. So I decided today would be a great day to preview the seasons for all four of these schools. I'm going to look at their tell you what I think the records are going to be. You can kind of get some of this in a video I did a few days ago where I did my tier rankings, but I'll go in a little bit more depth on each team, hopefully. But I'm going to go over, tell you where I think each team finishes in the league, what I think their records will be, and, you know, some highlights from each team, good or bad, or things to watch, I should say, going into the season. Before I get too far along, I want to give a shout out to my channel sponsor. So hang loose for about 40 seconds while I do that, please. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. Thank you for sticking around for that, and thank you all for being here. I want to give a shout-out to those who are in the chat room already. I want to give a shout-out to T-Ducks, Matt Dix, Pokemon Kid Entertainment, and John Christophic, Chief Fan. Thank you all for jumping in here real quick on this kind of I don't want to say it's an emergency show because there's nothing what I would consider an emergency, but a pop-up show, an unexpected show, kind of unannounced, unplanned. I've been wanting to do this, and to be honest with you, I'm extremely tired today. I didn't feel like editing a video. So I decided, you know what? I'll just do it live. Let's just do this baby live. Let you guys get in the chat room, hang out, and see where this thing goes. But the first, I'm going to start off doing this. Probably the easiest way to do this would just be to do it alphabetically. So I'm going to start off with the Arizona Wildcats. But I think the Arizona Wildcats, I have them. A lot of people are picking Arizona to be a contender for the conference championship. I'm not quite that high on them. I do think they finish in that second tier of the Big 12, right around the same record as West Virginia, finishing 6-3 in the conference. I have them finishing 8-4 overall in 2024. I have them beating New Mexico, beating Northern Arizona. I have them losing at Kansas State, which I think is a non-conference game. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but because that game was already on the schedule before Arizona joined the league, I think they're going ahead and playing it as a non-con game, but I have them dropping the game in Manhattan against Kansas State. Then they go on a bye week. Then they have to travel to Utah on the 28th for their first conference game. I have that as a loss as well. Then I have them returning home to Texas Tech and actually getting a W. I have a lot of questions. Personally, I have a lot of questions around Texas Tech, so I think Arizona wins that game. I have them going to BYU and winning. I don't think BYU is going to be very good this year. I have them going to coming back home and winning against Colorado. I have them beating my Mountaineers at home. I do think Arizona beats West Virginia at home in Arizona. I have them going to UCF on November 2nd and losing to the UCF Knights. It's a really long flight. They're coming off a stretch of playing 5 straight games, or it'll be their 5th straight game. So I just, it's going to be a tough stretch. They'll be worn out, might even be banged up. So I think they lose that game at UCF. Then they get a bye. They come back home to play Houston. They get a W there. Then they go to Fort Worth and lose to TCU, who I actually am kind of high on this year. And then I think they close out the season with a win in the rivalry game over the Arizona State Sun Devils. So there's the record I have for Arizona, 8-4 overall, 6-3 in the league. And when you look at the individual talent at Arizona, the reason I don't think they're going to be as good as some people think, changing coaching staff. I mean, you've got Brent Brennan coming in. I don't hate the hire of Brent Brennan, but anytime you have a change in coaching staff, it normally takes a year or so for the new staff and the new team to adapt to one another, to get used to playing together, right? And I think there'll be an adjustment period. You have not only new head coaches, but new staff, new coordinators, new position coaches. Everything's new. Now, the reason I still think they can win 8 games and be a good team, they have arguably the best quarterback in the Big 12 in Noah Fafita. They also have arguably not only the best receiver in the Big 12, but arguably the best receiver in the country in Tetaroa McMillan. Both of those guys decided to stay at Arizona. Anytime you have those 2 guys on a team, you're going to be good. Now, defensively, they have some talent too. You look on the defensive side of the ball, they had 2 players nominated for the Nagurski Award for top defensive player, cornerback Takario Davis and linebacker Jacob Manu. Both of those guys nominated for the Nagurski Award, and Davis was also nominated for the Jim Thorpe Award for the top DB in college football. So they have some talent on the defensive side. They did lose some pieces, but Brennan did a really good job retaining some pieces as well. So I do think Arizona's talented. But again, changing coaching staff, I do think they take a minor step back this year. They're not going to win 10 games, in my opinion. So I have them finishing 8-4, 6-3 in the conference, but a contending team nonetheless. I want to hear what you guys think. So next, I might as well go to the next team in alphabetical order. That's the Arizona State Sun Devils. Now, Arizona State, obviously, I'm not as high on as Arizona for obvious reasons. They are in year 2 of the Kenny Dillingham era. I do think Kenny Dillingham is going to be a good coach. He's recruiting really, really well, but they're still a year or 2 away, in my opinion. I just don't know that they're going to have the talent to be a contending team in the Big 12. Not yet. They are so far behind because of the scandal there that took place under Herm Edwards and his staff. They just have a long way to go. Now, the portal will help them get there, and they've brought in a lot of guys out of the transfer portal. But at the end of the day, I just don't think they're going to have enough talent to compete. I do like what they have at quarterback with Sam Levitt, the transfer from Michigan State. But outside of him, Arizona State fans, let me know is there somebody on this roster that I'm missing that is going to be better than and is not getting talked about enough. But I think when you look at the roster as a whole, there's just not enough pieces there. I don't think they'll be deep enough at the lines of scrimmage. I think they have more work to do there. And the fact that you have so many pieces coming together on this roster, they won't have to, going to be hard for those guys to gel together in 1 year. So, again, I have Arizona State finishing near the bottom of the pack. I actually have them finishing 3-9 overall and 1-8 in conference, with their only win coming at home against BYU. So I have them winning out of conference games against Wyoming, which I almost put that down as a loss, but because Wyoming's good, but it's at home. If it was at Wyoming, I actually would have picked Wyoming in that game, but it's not. It's at Arizona State, so I have them winning it, and I have them beating Texas State. I have them dropping their non-con game against Mississippi State. Arizona State has one of the tougher schedules in the conference. And that combined with the new staff, the rebuild they have there, I just think they're still a year away, at least a year away. So I have Arizona State finishing 3-9, 1-8 in conference. Next team on the list, Coach Prime and his Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado went 4-8 last year in the Pac-12. We all know that Dion has been the talk of the offseason, making sweeping changes across that roster. Basically booted a lot of guys and then bringing in a whole lot of guys. We know he kept Pat Shurmur on as the offensive coordinator at the end of last year after he made that switch. He likes the idea, according to what he said at media days, he likes the idea of Pat Shurmur being an NFL guy. I guess we'll find out if that works or not. He also has a new D coordinator. I can't remember his name. I apologize for that. I guess I should have researched that before I jump on here, but sometimes I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. But I like Matt Dix says he thinks that ASU actually has a better chance against Mississippi State than they do against Texas State. Yeah, Texas State is expected to be a really good team this year, believe it or not. I actually saw one poll, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was Greg Flugar, actually. I think he had Texas State as his pick to be the G5 representative in the playoff. So, real quick, I got a VIP member here with a comment. Shannon Miller says it's going to be tough for anyone to win 6 games in this conference. Yeah, this conference, top to bottom, are going to be a very competitive conference. It's going to be hard to find a gimme in this league, and if you do, there aren't very many of them. I don't even want to call Arizona State a gimme. To me, if you've got a roster full of Power 5 talent, you can't call it a gimme. So, I mean, Arizona State with their schedule, it's possible they could go winless. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but they could. Let me see if I got any more comments here before we continue with Colorado. Any more comments from channel members? I got to make sure I get those in. All right. If you guys want to make sure your comment gets seen, you can drop me a super chat, hit the $sign right near the chat box, then drop your comment and then hit send, and it'll highlight it for me if you leave a donation with it. WVU Earl's in the house. He's a VIP member here. He says, "Hey, Couz, what's up, WVU Earl?" All right, Colorado. Coach Prime made sweeping changes on the roster. We all know about that. We all know about Shedeur Sanders, the much-hyped quarterback, also Coach Prime's son. We all know he's on pretty much every list, Heisman list and Maxwell list and all the lists, right? And he deserves to be. He was sacked over 50 times last year, which was a Colorado record. But despite that, he put up really, really good numbers. So I like Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. I like what they did. They have a lot of good talent coming back at wide receiver. Jimmy Horn is the first one that comes to mind. Really good receiver, and then they have other guys too. And they went out and got even more talent in the portal. Plus, they have Travis Hunter playing receiver. And, oh, by the way, he also happens to play corner on defense, and he's really good at both. Travis Hunter's on about every watch list you can imagine. Defensively, he's probably going to be on them offensively too. We'll see. But we all know about Shedeur. My question about Colorado, actually, I have a few. Number one, I just don't think Coach Prime's proven yet he can do it at this level. He's trying to build a program through the transfer portal. I'm just not convinced that's a winning formula. I think there's just too much roster turnover. I think it's hard to build. It's hard to build chemistry, hard to build camaraderie. And I think that's very important in football, especially college football. I think that locker room vibe, that locker room chemistry is very important. And I just don't know if they have time to build that. Culture is a big deal in college football. Line of scrimmage, losing a lot of pieces off the line of scrimmage. It was a line of scrimmage that wasn't very good, so maybe that's not a bad thing. But again, will the guys he's replacing them with be any better? Time will tell. We don't know the answer to that yet. So at the end of the day, when you look at Colorado's schedule, I have them finishing the year 4-8. I think they have the same record they had a year ago in the Pac-12, and I think they finished 2-7 in the conference. Colorado doesn't have an easy schedule either. I mean, they start the year out at home against North Dakota State, a really, really good football team. Then they have to go to Nebraska. I think they dropped the game to Nebraska. I think Matt Rule's going to have Nebraska in a bowl game this year, and I think they're going to be pretty darn good. I like Dylan Raiola, quarterback in Nebraska, and I just think they'll be good. I think they'll be better defensively, so I like Nebraska there. Then they go to Colorado State. They actually play on the road at Colorado State for the first time in a really long time. I do think they win that game, but it's not going to be easy. That's a rivalry game. That's probably Colorado State's Super Bowl. They're going to be up for that game. We all remember how close it was last year. But I do think Colorado comes out on top because I just think they have a talent advantage. I think they win their first conference game at home against Baylor. But then I think they go to UCF, to Orlando, and lose to the Knights. Then they get a bye week. Then they lose to Kansas State. I have them losing to Arizona at Arizona. I have them beating Cincinnati at home because, the home crowd's going to show up and show out for Coach Prime. Then they get another bye. Then they go to Texas Tech. I have them losing in Lubbock to Texas Tech. I have them losing at home against Utah. I have them losing at Kansas, and I have them losing against Oklahoma State. That last 4-game stretch at Texas Tech, at home against Utah, at Kansas, and home against Oklahoma State is a really tough stretch. They also have Arizona thrown in there on the road. They have Kansas State at home. I mean, that is a brutal schedule for the Buffaloes. I just don't think they're going to be prepared for it. I do, like I said, they have talent, but especially at the skill positions, but I'm just not ready to because I don't have the confidence that they have what it takes in the trenches just yet to get it done and be competitive for a conference championship. Real quick, I got a new channel member I want to recognize real quick. Lonnie Johansson. Lonnie Johansson, thank you very much for becoming a channel member here. I really appreciate that. Means a lot. Really means a lot. And Lonnie also left a super chat. Says, "Go Big 12." Thank you, Lonnie, for the donation and for joining the channel. Thank you for your generosity. So again, I have Colorado 4-8 and 2-7 in conference. Now, the last team that we're going to talk about, the Utah Utes. Now, this team here is a lot of people's pick to win the league. That includes this guy right here. I also think Utah is going to be the best team in the league, not by a long shot necessarily, but I don't even want to say best team, but I think they're lined up best to win the league because of their schedule as well. Now, when you look at K Ford ratings over on X, he put a graphic out that shows how many games each team in college football in the FBS needs to win, how many games each FBS team needs to win to be considered for an at-large berth in the college football playoff. Based on Utah's schedule, they need to win 11 games to have any chance to get an at-large bid. Now, more than likely, if they win 11 games, they're probably going to win the Big 12 as well, or at least be in Arlington to play for the championship. So if they finish 11-1, make it to Arlington, and then lose, they still might get an at-large bid. But I think Utah, when you look at Utah, to me, they have the least amount of questions of any team in the Big 12 this year. Cam Rising, not a question mark at quarterback, in my opinion. You look at their running back room. They have a really good running back room, a lot of depth there. Jalen Glover and Micah Bernard being the top two on that list. Those names may not be real familiar to you, but they're really two solid players with a lot of snaps, or at least Glover has a lot of snaps. Now, you look at their left tackle spot. They have a redshirt freshman playing there. You could say that's a question mark because he's only a redshirt freshman, but he played last year, and he's extremely, extremely talented. They have older guys playing most positions up front, a lot of juniors up front, so they do have guys who played a lot of snaps on the offensive line. Even though they don't have a whole lot of seniors up there, they still have a lot of experience, so still not a lot of question marks on the O-line either. The D-line might be the strength of the football team, a really good defensive line. They have Brent Keithy coming back at tight end. He suffered an injury last year. The one question mark they had a year ago, wide receiver, they addressed that. They went out and got Dorian Singer, a wide receiver, an 1,100-yard receiver, by the way, from USC out of the portal. So they addressed that need. There's not a lot of positions this team's weak at. You look on defense, they have defensive tackle Junior Tefanu, who's on the Nagurski list. I mean, so they're just talented across the board. They're deep at most positions, not a lot of questions. And then when you look at their schedule, listen to this schedule. By the way, I have them finishing 11-1, 8-1 in league. They start the season out playing at home against Southern Utah, W. They play Baylor at home in a non-conference game. That's a W. They go to Utah State. That's probably a W. They go on the road. Their first official Big 12 game is on the road in Stillwater against Oklahoma State Cowboys. I do have that game as a loss. That's going to arguably be Utah's toughest test of the season. I think Stillwater's a tough place to play. I do think Oklahoma State's also going to be a good football team. So I have Utah dropping that game in Stillwater, but I don't have them losing again. Here's their Big 12 schedule. Did they play at home against Arizona? I have that as a W. They go to Arizona State. They play at home against TCU, at Houston, at home against BYU, at Colorado, at home against Iowa State, and at UCF to close out the season. They avoid West Virginia. They avoid Kansas State. They avoid Kansas, and they avoid Kansas. So they avoid several of the top teams who were in the conversation to contend for a Big 12 title. Because of that, I have them going 11-1, 8-1 in conference, going to Arlington, and probably winning the Big 12 championship. Now, the Big 12 championship game is going to be interesting this year because more than likely there's going to be a lot of parity, like I said, in this league, and I look for those two teams to be very evenly matched, whoever gets to Arlington. So, Utah Utes, to me, least amount of questions of any team in the league. Great coaching, good quarterback play, star wide receiver, experience at running back, experience on the lines on both sides of the ball. I mean, where is there an issue now? Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments where Utah has question marks. I just don't know of any. I really don't. I don't know of any question marks on this Utah team. Now, for those of you watching on X, feel free to chime in and let me know. I may not see it till the video's done, but I do want to hear what you have to say about Utah and what you think. Does Utah have any question marks? I just don't see any. When I look through their roster, when I read Phil Steele's breakdown of them, listen to other podcasters, read a lot of articles. If this team struggles, it's going to really, really surprise me. Would it surprise me if they go 10-2? No, not really. But I'm not saying 11-1 is a lock or anything like that. But man, if they're not at least one of the top 3 teams in the conference, I'm going to be extremely, extremely surprised. But like I said, for them to get to the college football playoff, they probably need to win at least 11 games and or win the league. Obviously, winning the league assures you a spot more than likely, because the top 5 ranked, highest 5 ranked conference, the highest ranked, the 5 highest. I'll get it right in a minute, guys. The 5 highest ranked conference champions will all get an automatic first round bye in the playoffs. So, with that being said, I look for Utah to be one of those teams. What's up, Expedition Greg? Got Shannon Miller with another comment. Says, I agree with you, Couz, with Utah's recent pedigree. I would choose them too until someone proves otherwise. They'll have a tough road, but not as tough as some others. Exactly. Like I said, I think there are going to be a lot of other good teams in the conference. I think West Virginia is going to be good. I think Oklahoma State's going to be good. I think Kansas State will be good. I think Kansas will be good. Iowa State will be good. But here's the thing. Most of those teams play a much tougher schedule than Utah. That's the one thing I don't like about getting away from about this, having all these teams in a conference and playing these. You play unbalanced schedules. You play such an unbalanced schedule that it's never equitable. You might have a team. Let's just say, I'm predicting West Virginia go 8-4. Let's say West Virginia goes 8-4, but they might be more talented than a team that goes 10-2 and plays in Arlington, because they play such an easier schedule. But the other team may play at such an easier schedule. But again, when you're predicting schedules, you don't know how good teams are going to be in advance. Now, you can guess when you're out, but now they've got the Big 12 schedules made 4 years out. So you don't know how good teams are going to be 4 years from now. So some of this is just, luck of the draw. Matter of fact, most of it's luck of the draw. With the exception being the few protected rivalries the Big 12 has, which is very few. It's luck of the draw. Who did you draw and when did you draw them? Now, what you'll notice about Utah's schedule too, their bye weeks come. One is after a road game at TCU. The other one is before a road game. Or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. I was looking at the wrong team. Their bye weeks after they play Arizona, they have a bye week before they go to Arizona State. Then they get another bye week a month later after they play Houston on the road before they play BYU at home. So their bye weeks are positioned pretty nicely for them as well, which I think will help them out. But again, I just think Utah's set up nicely to win this conference. So I want to hear what you guys think, again, in the comment section. Bagman says he thinks Utah is winning it he thinks Colorado's winning it in year 1. Interesting, Bagman. Very interesting. I don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Coach Prime proves me wrong and his method works and he's able to get enough talent on there to win games. I just don't see it. I think college football relies too much on camaraderie, locker room culture, and that kind of thing, and I just don't think Colorado's going to have it. But again, this is all preseason conjecture. Who the heck knows, right? I could be wrong on every team on this list. Shannon Miller says, if we had last year's schedule, I would be upset with anything less than 10 wins. This year's schedule is a beast, absolutely. Like I've said multiple times, West Virginia could win 7 or 8 games and still be a better team than they were a year ago when they won 9. That's the thing. J-Dub talks college football. He says he has Oklahoma State winning it. It's very possible. Oklahoma State has more people returning from last year's team than anyone. They obviously have Ollie Gordon. They have a returning quarterback. I'm not real high on their quarterback, but he's experienced. He knows what it takes to win at that level, and he's in year 32 in college? I'm kidding. I think he's a 7th-year guy. But anyway, Bagman says he was just joking. Sorry, Bagman. I didn't know it was a joke. He says he thinks they'll be lucky to win a game. LOL. Thank you, Bagman, for the comment. Matt Dick says Colorado returns 3 players. Exactly. That's why I just think it's hard to win with so much turnover. We have Cole watching on X. Which school scares you the most on our schedule? Cole, and Cole's a West Virginia fan. Cole, obviously Penn State is the obvious answer there, but if you look at in-conference games, the game at Stillwater against Oklahoma State scares me the most because Neil Brown has struggled on the road for the most part throughout his career. Let's be honest about that. And Stillwater also just happens to be maybe the toughest place to play in the league. And on top of that, Oklahoma State's likely going to be really good. So I have West Virginia dropping that game at Stillwater. I think they'll struggle. And Oklahoma State has just had West Virginia's number for some reason, with a few exceptions. And the years that West Virginia normally beats Oklahoma State are years when it's an upset, when West Virginia doesn't have a good year. It's crazy how it works. Shannon Miller, another comment, says Colorado has no team, great celebrities and a bunch of talent, but that doesn't get you to the trophy. Bingo. That's my point there exactly. J-Dub Talks Football says, let me ask you this, Couz, because I wrote about it. Do we see W making a change if they do not win 9+ games? No, I do not. I don't think you have to win 9 games. Again, I think they can be a good football team and still win 8 games, maybe even 7. 7 wins to me would be a letdown. But I don't think Neil Brown. I don't think Ren Baker fires Neil Brown after a 7-5 season. I just don't see that happening. West Virginia is not a blue blood school. If you fire Neil Brown, who are you going to get to replace him? He already has a culture in place. He already has his recruiting in place. The 2025 class is shaping up to be a really good one. So I don't see that happening. To me, it would require probably a losing season to get him fired. That's just my opinion. But I could be wrong. And you say you agree with me. Yeah. West Virginia is not a team that fires coaches like the Texas A&Ms and the Nebraskas of the world who are willing to pay these huge buyouts and pay people to sit home. It's not West Virginia style, and quite frankly, they can't afford to, especially with what's coming down the pipeline with this house settlement stuff. By the way, I'm going to plug that. The guys I interviewed, Ren Baker, on my show last week. I broke it up into 2 videos. The first interview, we talk about West Virginia's upcoming season in both basketball and football. We talk about the West Virginia brand, how strong it is, and he gives some data to back up West Virginia being a top 30 brand in the country. And we also talk about a study that came out a while back saying West Virginia was the 2nd most expensive game day experience in the country. Ren Baker spit out some cold hard facts to debunk that and say it's absolutely not accurate. They had some facts wrong in that article, and he talks about that. The second video, which surprisingly hasn't gotten done as well, because I thought it had the most juicy information in it. He breaks down the house settlement, what all was involved in it, why it happened, and talks about West Virginia and how it could affect them. Talks about the roster limits, the scholarship, increases and all that stuff. I asked him about future scheduling. I actually, kind of in a nice way, told him I disagreed with his thoughts on scheduling and why he, was wanting to drop that extra Power 5 game. But his answer made sense. And if things play out the way it probably will with the college football playoff, he's probably going to be right about his reasoning. And again, he's the AD. He knows more about it than I do. So I respect that. And we talked a little bit about some other things too. But anyway, go check those 2 interviews out. For club level VIP members, you guys actually, and the club level is the $4.99 a month level, they actually get a full unedited edition of that with with limited ads. I can limit how many ads YouTube shows in videos. I do that for my club level members at times. I also don't have the ad read in there that I do in every show and all that. So it gets straight to the content and it's unedited. So you see some of my screw ups in there as well. But anyway, let's get to some of the comments here. Earl Carr, another VIP member, says Kalani has to make a bowl game or look for BYU to make a change, Couz. I heard that in an interview the other day on 365 Sports, and that surprised me. So, yeah, BYU. Now, spoiler alert, I don't have them making a bowl game. I'll be honest with you. I plan to break them down in a future video, but I don't have them making a bowl game. The Scope Zone says, who do you think is a dark horse for the Big 12 title? I think West Virginia's a dark horse, honestly. I'm not predicting it, but I do think they can do it. If Garrett Green makes the jump he's capable of making, and the guys that they brought in the secondary are better than last year, and it doesn't take them a while to adjust to the game, to the speed of the game, West Virginia can play in Arlington. I have no doubt about it. But those two things are going to have to happen, and they're going to have some breaks too. Some of the teams they play are probably going to have to be not as good as we think they are. You know, they have to be fairly injury-free. We know there are going to be some injuries, right? There always are. But they have to be fairly healthy, pretty healthy. Definitely can't lose your stars off the team. If all that everything falls into place, I think West Virginia has a really good chance to be in Arlington. And I think Iowa State also. I don't even know if you can consider these two teams dark horses. One team I don't think nobody's mentioning though is TCU. I think TCU is going to be better than people realize. And I'll break them down in a future video. But TCU may scare some people this year. May surprise some people. Cam Harrison, I'm excited too, my man. He says he's excited for college football. The Scope Zone says Utah excites me. Not going to lie, I'm very curious to see how Rising does in a new conference, seeing as he dominated the Pac-12 in his last healthy season. Yes, because of Cam Rising, because of what they gave him at the wide receiver spot with Dorian Singer. Utah always has a good defense, especially with Kyle Whittingham at the helm. They're just solid across the board. I don't see a whole lot of weaknesses on that team. Again, if you're a Utah fan watching this, do they have any weaknesses? Matt Dick says UCF, TT, and TCU are bowl teams that are dangerous. Bingo. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Matt Dick says we should win all three at home because of the home advantage. Agreed. Utah fan is a great fit to the Big 12. Utah's a great fit to the Big 12. I want some of their fans to get humbled. Yeah, what I found out with Utah, I've gotten into it with a few Utah fans on X myself. What I have discovered is the majority of Utah fans are actually really, really cool. I've had a lot of really good interactions, positive interactions here with Utah fans. One of I could say my closest YouTube friends is Wild Ute over at the College Football Mafia Network. I'm friends of those guys over there. I like, Wild Ute's a Utah guy. He's a super nice guy. There's a really small handful of Utah fans that are just loud, obnoxious jerks. And unfortunately, they're also the ones who post on social media probably the most. So that's the ones everybody sees. But for the most part, Utah fans have been cool. So I've changed my opinion on Utah fans over the last few weeks. Remember, guys, I've got a lot of comments coming in now. I have over 200 people watching. That's awesome between X and YouTube. Remember, if you're watching, you want me to see your comment, and you're watching on YouTube, make sure to drop a super chat. Do that by hitting the $ near the chat box. It highlights your comment. I will put it on the screen. I will read it. I will answer it. I will address it. If it's a question, I'll do my best to answer the question. And it's an easy way to support what I'm doing here on the show. And the second one pops in. Appalachia Africa Twin. Thank you, my man. By the way, before I answer this, listen to what I went in and was looking for your bourbon the other day that you told me about. I couldn't find it. So you don't have to drop it as a super chat, but remind me again what the name of that bourbon was. Appalachia Africa Twin with the $5 super chat says, welcome to the new teams officially. Thank you, Couz, for awesome content. Thank you, Appalachia Africa Twin, for the support. I really appreciate that. You've been very generous, and I really appreciate it. I think I may have asked for the wrong brand when I went into the store the other day looking for that bourbon. So I might have to try it again in the near future at another store. Matt Dick says he believes Donaldson will stay healthy, but don't forget WVU has talent. Absolutely. Roses. 4 roses. I was calling it 4 seasons for some reason. I don't know why I was calling it 4 seasons. I had a brain fart that day, I guess. I'll remember 4 roses next time. But yeah, as far as thank you. I'll check out Oakville Road store. Appreciate that. I will. As far as Donaldson goes, Donaldson's healthy for the first time. Really, he's fully healthy since the middle of his freshman year. I think he's going to have a heck of a year this year. Now, Jaheim White, I think he will. He has opportunity to as well if he doesn't hit that sophomore wall, which Coach Brown admitted is a real thing. It does happen a lot. He's working with Jaheim White to try to avoid it. If Jaheim White avoids the sophomore slump or the sophomore wall, whatever you want to call it, and CJ gets back to form and stays healthy, oh my gosh. When's the last time West Virginia had 2,000-yard rushers? It's crazy. Possible this year. Then you add in the fact Garrett Green's back there. Holy cow. I'm not sure there'll be enough touches to go around for them to have 2,000-yard rushers. But if they can even duplicate what they did last year, they can have a good year. They were the number 4 rushing team in all of FBS last year as far as yardage. I think they were number 1 in the Power 5 in yards per game. So that's nothing to sneeze at. And they did that without a 1,000-yard rusher because CJ got his, Jaheim got his, and Garrett got his. And I think that can happen again this year. And let's not forget about Jalen Anderson. Jalen Anderson's not a slouch. And he's going to get some carries to give those other 2 guys breathers. And he's had some games in the past where he's looked like a stud as well. Slayton and White 07, says Matt Dix. Could very well be. Big 12, the best quarterback and running back conference, says RT. I love, man, that actually might be a good video idea there, RT. Does the Big 12 have the best running back and quarterback rooms in the league? Great video idea. I'm going to have to write that down. If I can find a pen. Anyway, I'll try to remember right down after the show's over. But yes, I do think they're extremely deep at both of those positions. Quarterback, wide receiver is probably the one position I would say the Big 12 might be lacking compared to some other leagues. But there's some talent there too. Dorian Singer from Utah I mentioned. Iowa State's got a guy who's really talented. Colorado's got some talent. UCF's got talent at that spot, just to name a few. So, yes, there's going to be a lot of talent at that position too, but definitely not as deep as running back and quarterback. I can't forget Tedderell McMillan at Arizona, who I mentioned earlier. Yes, it's Garrett's last season, Scope Zone. It definitely is. It's his COVID year, correct. I don't even know if it's 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, it's his COVID year, basically. And I think he redshirted his freshman year anyway, so he might have gotten it anyway. I don't know. That whole COVID year thing throws me off, but it definitely is his last year for sure. Then they get to hopefully hand the reins to Nico, who they say has looked extremely, extremely sharp in camp. The game has finally slowed down to him. It's finally started to click. So if Garrett does, heaven forbid, go down, I don't think they'll miss. Last year they had to really change the whole playbook. I don't think they'll have to do that this year if Nico goes down. I mean, if Garrett goes down, because I think Nico's going to be able to take the ball and run with it, no pun intended. I do, Scope Zone. I do. Now, I've heard Ryder Burton extremely talented, but, I mean, Nico will be going – next year Nico will be going into his 4th year in the program, his 4th year under Neil Brown. Would it be 4th year or 2nd or 3rd year? Anyway, he'll have several years at the program already. And Ryder Burton will be only in year 2 in the program, so I give Nico a nod there. And it's just his time. It's just Nico's time. And now I'm not saying he won't make Nico compete for it. He's not going to hand him the job. But I do think Nico will win the job next year over Ryder Burton. But, man, the future looks bright at that position with Burton. Then you've got Khalil Wilkins, the true freshman, in this year. You've got Scotty Fox following him. And you've got, assuming these guys stay committed and they sign, you've got Brody McWhorter coming after him. So the quarterback position is looking good at West Virginia down the road. Scope Zone says he thinks Nico just looks more like a raw version of Garrett. I agree. Just not quite as fast. He's a good runner, but he's not as fast. He's more of a power runner, whereas Garrett's a speed guy. Shannon Miller says, Couz, I see that Independence was moved to 3A this year and we play Princeton this year. Yes. Hope y'all ain't as good as last year. We're going to be good this year, but maybe not 3A good. Yeah, Princeton is, obviously they lost Dom Collins. He's at West Virginia now. They lost starting offensive lineman Eli Campbell, who's now at the Air Force Academy. They lost another starting lineman and one receiver that was a contributor. But for them, other than that, everybody's back. Their quarterback is back. Who had a really good year last year as a sophomore. Their starting running back in Markel Lowe is back. Brad Mosser, their other good receivers, back. Most of the team is back on the defensive side of the ball. Their offensive line, outside of Campbell, outside of two guys last year, they had freshmen and sophomores on the offensive line. So all of those guys will be back. And by the way, they have a guy named Daniel Jennings who just verbally committed to Penn State, who was given a 4-star rating by 24/7 Sports. He's going to be at Princeton this year, transferring over from Graham. He's being recruited as an edge rusher, but he's also a running back on offense. So he will probably be able to give Markel Lowe some breathers playing that spot. So I'm really excited. Princeton may have a chance. They may actually have a better chance of winning the state title this year than last year because they won't have to face the Martinsburgs of the world. Losing Collins is going to hurt, and losing Campbell will hurt, but they have so many other players coming back. I think they have a shot to get back to Wheeling again. Appalachia Africa Twin, thank you for becoming a VIP channel member here at Couz's Corner. Thank you for your support. Matt Dix, I babysitted Daniel Jennings, Couz. I know his family well. That's awesome, man. That's cool. I've heard he's a really good young man. Shannon says but hey, man, hey, look, I could be totally wrong. They could take a step back. You never know. And Independence is a really good program. That game should be a good one. I look forward to watching that one, actually. I hope it's in Princeton. I haven't looked at I did see they were on the schedule, but I didn't look to see where the game was being played. Listen, I'm not going to go long here. I appreciate everybody hopping on here. Again, if you're just now getting here late, you can go back and watch the replay. It'll be up for you as an on-demand video once the live stream's over. I appreciate everybody for hopping on here. Don't forget, got to give another shout out to my channel sponsor, Cats Counter, Stone Street, and Buckner. If you need an attorney, if you've been injured or a family member's been injured, or you've been the victim of medical negligence, medical malpractice in West Virginia or Virginia, give them a call and go to 1-8 or go to yourlawyeryourvoice.com and check them out. All right, listen, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm going to run. It's Friday night. I'm going to try to spend some time with my family. Everyone have a top shelf day, a top shelf evening whenever you're watching this. And don't forget the Q Country Roads. Oh, welcome Utah. Welcome Arizona. Welcome Arizona State. Welcome Colorado. It's Big 12 time. Oh, man, got another super chat coming in late. Appalachia Africa Twin with a $50 donation. Your generosity, much appreciated. He says, here's another bottle for you, Couz, Wild Turkey Long Branch Bourbon. That's another one I'm not familiar with. So I'm going to have to, man, you're filling up my liquor cabinet, Appalachia Africa Twin. I appreciate the support, my guy. Appreciate the support. All right, I say my guy. I'm assuming you're a guy. 96% of my audience is a guy, so I just automatically throw that out there. Anyway, everyone, thanks again for joining the show. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.